Lee Oslo on the stream says Mountain Blade Bannerlord Pog. Yes, Mountain Blade. It's coming up on the special sub-only stream. Cup. You know it. Live Morph, Takaholic, Telonx, Toxi, Japanese character, Mishiboy, Frotz Schutz, Alinox, back to the roots, Narok, and Charkovic. Thank you, boys.
All right, so you might have heard a few things recently about Ninjas in Pajamas, one of esports' most storied organizations. Things like allegations and evidence of corruption, tax evasion, failure to pay players prize money, and contract clauses the likes of which will make your fucking head spin. On top of sifting through all of the known details and breaking those down for you here today, theScore Esports spoke with 5 different players from multiple iterations of NiP rosters about their experiences
all
with the organization.
Probably.
Here's what we learned.
Hey Forsen, have you ever played Lobotomi Corporation? It's a really good game that not many people know about. Here is a video if you want to check it out.
We checked it out, but I don't know what the fuck you were supposed to do. It was fucking weird. I don't know. We tried it like one stream and when it was newly released, but I couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into it. Thanks anyway, Trump.
All right, so before we actually get into the breakdown, we just need you to know that this is a really complicated situation. We're working with a variety of sources and tracking down multiple different leads, so there will be new videos in the future. Just keep it locked. Back on June 28th, Robin Faflaren Johansson, a member of one of the most accomplished CSGO rosters to ever exist, tweeted out that he was fed up about the way he was treated by the organization, and he wanted to speak up about it, which he did in a July 24th interview with esports journalist Richard Lewis.
I wanted to tell my story of like 2013, like even like NiP in general, I think, because I feel like there's so many unanswered questions from that time.
See, back in 2012, 2013, NiP dominated the Counter-Strike landscape. One would assume they won a boatload of prize money. And with all their top-tier sponsorships, I mean, they had a chocolate bar for Pete's sake. One would assume that they were at the very least
sponsorship.
Oh shit, no.
Not sponsorship, but
they were not comfortable. Because around Christmas of 2013, the players were called to an emergency meeting with 2 members of NiP's upper management, Emil Heaton Christensen and Robert Himmler, and promptly told that then CEO Nicholas Fischer had fucked off to Thailand with all of the prize money from 2012 and 2013, and nobody had heard from him. But
they won every single tournament in 2013, and then the leaders say,
we don't have any proof of any of this.
Or the manager
like,
says,
it's just basically they're just telling us all this, and at the same time, then they also then tell us that
they took the money. They took the money and fled to
came
Thailand.
Out later, and I think this
all
is
your prize
that
money
maybe
is gone.
Richard has, and I think he mentioned that in the interview with me too. That he said that when we then went back and looked, it was since Nicholas that has taken the money to Thailand. It was Emil that had went to the US and spent it all. I think that story is a story that we haven't talked about yet, because like the focus is like elsewhere at the moment. But I did mention in the interview with Richard was that I said, I think that Emil got brainwashed and and all that.
Did they have
but
this?
I never did I say that I think that he's innocent.
And oh, by the way, NiP didn't even pay taxes on the prize money that the players never even received. At that time in 2013, NiP was a subsidiary of a company called Stockholm Esports Production AB. This version of NiP is the first of 2 iterations of the organization. The players were told not to worry because despite not being paid any of the prize money from the previous year, Heaton and NiP management had secured new investors who theoretically would provide the funds to pay the taxes on the prize money that the players never saw. And according to Faflaren, this is
off topic. He's Esports Hall of Fame. Who else is in Esports Hall of Fame? Like, is that me? I am. No. I was wondering if it was like a thing, like in Magic the Gathering.
There was just one little caveat.
Oh, by the way,
Armada from Smash.
It hasn't been taxed. Everything just hasn't been taxed for.
Isn't the
tax evasion is
Mewtwo King guy?
Yeah, it's not a joke.
Hasn't he achieved more than
why
Armada?
This becomes
Shouldn't
a
he be
very
there?
big part of the decision was that if I get caught for tax evasion, and I had, and I have my bank statement here from 2013, I have 27,000 Swedish crowns on there. My taxes ended up being 69,500. I could have never paid it, and I wasn't the only one. Like, if anything, on my bank account, except for GetRight, I was probably the one with the most money. So like, we were all in very bad shape. And then this happens. Hey, he's fled to Thailand. Your taxes hasn't been paid for. All the prize money is gone. But we have a new investor, and if you re-sign with us, we'll make sure that we pay your taxes if the tax office catches us. If IRS catches us, we will pay your tax money.
That's actually tax evasion. If you only pay taxes when caught, that's tax evasion.
On top of that, according to
intentionally,
Flair, the players were told that they need to make up their mind really fast because otherwise this investor was just going to leave. Now, I'm just a kid with a smile and a dream, but even I understand that it's not the responsibility of the players to retain potential investors. And the fact that they were allegedly pressured to make a quick decision is just fucking bonkers. But in one specific way, the badgering about re-sign or we'll lose the investors does make sense.
There's obviously stuff that happens in the background here. Like, NiP is not just a company, it's under Stockholm's esports production. It's just a side branch brand. So in order to claim NiP, you have to change the company from Stockholm esports production, and they made the NiP company now. And this, I made a tweet, I think, 2 weeks ago when I said, you know, the old sponsorships that they claimed, these are stores from back in the day, because like the only thing they did was, you know, the NiP Ninjas and Pajamas stayed the same, but it was the underlying thing that swapped. So now we have a completely new company. So the conversation was like, because they were doing that, they needed us to basically re-sign.
Okay, so a few days later, the players were called back for another meeting, this time to meet NiP's principal investor, a guy named Hisham Shaheen. All right, folks, this is where things get a little weird. To this day, Hisham has stated on the record that he had nothing to do with the day-to-day management of NiP until 2016, when he officially became the company's CEO. But according to internal emails Faflaren provided to us, as well as an apparent breakdown of a NiP annual general meeting, not only was Hisham involved with calling weekly meetings and coordinating player contracts with the organization, but for some reason that we don't yet understand, Hisham had majority voting rights on the board. What this basically means is that at the end of the day, Hisham had final say on decisions relating to the company. And he had the ability to override anything that Heaton or the rest of NiP management wanted to do.
So here it just says name, Hisham, right? Then it says Emil. So these are the only two basically at the moment that has a say in NiP. And then on the right here it says number of stocks. So here's also Emil's mistake. In Sweden, there's two separate stocks. There's one stock that's mostly for money, and there's one stock that's for like power, which is why, you know, you see number of stocks. Hisham only has 4K and Emil has 6K, but on the right here it says number of votes, and that says 8K versus 6K. So here all of a sudden, yeah, it looks like Emil is majority stakeholder, but if you actually look at the end of like the background of the company, that's not true. Emil here at this time.
Wait, I didn't even know about this.
Gave away
what? The amount of shares represents your... What? These are correlated, no? Aren't they supposed to be correlated? There's a difference of, between A and B stocks. Yes, but that's... I thought that was a public, if you went public. This is a small company. This is not a public company. Or is this for smaller companies too? Like the LLC. This is LLC. This is an LLC company. Oh, I didn't know that.
Rights to the company at this point, right? So now all of a sudden,
learn something new
you
every
have
day.
the most stocks, but you're not majority holder anymore, and you don't have the final say. And this document, look at top, 2014, 0410. He claims he had nothing to do with NiP until 2016.
And now, the same CSGO roster that had just completed one of the most impressive runs in the history of Counter-Strike were presented with contracts that include clauses that will shock you. Now, Faflaren sent us what appears to be the finalized contract, but what's important to note are the proposed contract clauses that the players rejected. Something that Richard Lewis went over in his original interview with Faflaren.
Any violation of any provisions in the
Alright,
contract
relax with your
means
one-man
that they can
spam.
call forth a contractual penalty,
not very
aka
funny.
a fine, of 20,000 euros per individual violation, and the right of NiP to claim further punitive damages will remain unaffected. So essentially what they tried to slip in here was, if you violated any aspect of the contract, they could fine you 20,000 fucking euros. The other clause, which is just as absurd in my opinion, it says that the organization can set the status of the player to inactive at any time of their choosing, and if they do that, the player has no right to get any compensation, salary, prize money, anything from that day forth, and your contract duration will not be affected by this decision. So in other words, they can drop you at any time, you're still under contract, but they don't pay you a penny.
And if you're thinking, thank God those clauses didn't make it into the
That's
contract,
pretty much every
esports
contract ever though back then.
Yeah, well, not really. This is FreeZe's contract. And if you're a League of Legends fan, you might know that he played with NiP from June 2013 to September 2014. I'm going to read off a few specific clauses from his contract that line up with what Richard Lewis talked about with Forsen.
In some organizations, I guess.
NiP is entitled to set the status of the player to inactive at any time. If this case occurs, the player has no right to claim any compensation from that day forth. The contract duration keeps unaffected in any case. And there's a second clause that's really important that does seem to match up with what Forsen and Richard Lewis talked about. Any violations of the provisions in this article shall call forth a contractual penalty of 5,000 euros for each individual violation. The right of NiP to claim further damages will remain unaffected. At least it wasn't 20,000 euros. I guess. On top of that, FreeZe's former teammate, Alex Ish, who provided us with FreeZe's contract, had additional issues with NiP.
At one point, like I was on the travel visa and you can be only in the, I think it's just like 3 out of 6 months or something like that. So basically your limited amount of time you can be in the European Union. And then my visa was getting to a point where I'm not allowed to be in the country anymore. And then I came to them again and I talked to them like, is it fine? And they said, yeah. Everything is in process. But then eventually when we didn't get through to LCS, all of that got into a situation where they're like, you know what, remember all those documents. I don't remember what exactly they said, but basically it all was like bullshit. And I was in this situation where my visa is expired. I can get like literally banned from going to Europe anymore. And basically when that happened, my wife was with me there too in the gaming house. My son was left with my son's grandparents. I think her visa was fine. I'm not 100%, but basically what I did, if I would leave through Sweden, there was a high chance of me getting screwed over. So I checked the country that has the least chance of checking your visa, the amount of days you were in the country. So I left through Spain and luckily I wasn't checked and I just got out and I didn't get the ban from visiting Europe again. This is like one of the really bad experiences with NiP, probably the biggest one that got me really depressed. I mean, and the second part was probably not only me, but a lot of people. I wasn't receiving the money from them for a while, so they were owing me like 5,000 euro or something like that. And basically, I went in social media with that, and they paid me, I think, in like a couple of weeks. Pretty soon after I went into social media. But before that, I was asking them literally almost every day, what about money? And they were sending me to talk to different people, and then they were suddenly like disappearing, not answering.
We also spoke with Hanskin, a member of NiP's Dota 2 team in 2015, who remembers something in his contract really similar to what Forsen and FreeZe had to deal with.
First of all, like I always got the impression that we were being taken care of and they really cared for us, but everything seemed a little bit not so organized.
I hope they all read the
contract negotiations. A lot of things would
the NDAs of their contracts before talking about their contracts.
There would be slips.
The expiration
I
date.
remember we were supposed to sign for a year, and then when we arrived with the press contracts and everything, it said 2 years. I wish I had the contract right in front of me, but I don't. What I do remember was from the Richard Lewis and Forsen podcast, where they mentioned the ridiculous, what do you call it, the penalties or the fines. I remember clearly that we had the same numbers, 20,000 euros as a penalty for, you know, whatever penalties they had in their contract. And our salaries were nothing close to that, so... I don't think anyone was ever fined for that amount of money, but it was still there, so...
Their contracts were 5 years ago.
We've spoken with sources more recently associated with NiP who've expressed their own frustrations.
They can put whatever number they want in there. They can put 10 years if they want.
Where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with a ton of questions, more interviews that we're currently doing, and more research that we still need to comb through. But one thing is for certain. This story
Defending
is not
scammers?
over,
What?
and we will have more
No,
information for you
I'm
soon.
defending them so they don't get in
All
trouble.
right, y'all. This is where things get a little weird.
People need to read their NDAs.
No, I'm not.
Give me a little more spice on it.
All right, fuckers. All right, folks. All right, peoples. All right, ladies and germs. This is where things get a little weird. We're not gonna, no.
I don't get it though.
Folks, I'll do it. Do you want me to do it one more time then for you?
So they win every single tournament. 2013. At the end of the year, the management says, "Hey, your money is gone. We're not gonna pay you." And then a new management takes over the NiP company. But if it's the same company, debt is transferred over to new management, no matter what. So if the players have an invoice to the company, then they should get paid with a new management regardless. If the management loses the money, it's their problem. This is such an easy court case. Not if they dissolve the company. But it looks like they didn't dissolve the company, right? They didn't dissolve the company. It's the same NiP company. Or did they dissolve it? Maybe they did dissolve it. I don't know. It looked like they didn't. Oh, they did create a new company. Oh, okay. Huh. They did create a new company day after closing first NiP. Oh, wow. The day after. And it sucks. I've heard countless of stories, people getting butt fucked in esports. Contracts. People not reading their fucking contracts properly because they're fucking... They're young, right? Did I get fucked over? No, I've never not gotten what I've been promised in that sense. I never not gotten what I've been promised. Sometimes there's been delays, but I'm a lazy motherfucker myself, so it's also because of me, right? But I've never not gotten what I've been promised. I make sure I read contracts thoroughly, and a lot of people have asked me about stuff in esports regarding deals and stuff. But just don't do anything hasty. Don't do anything hasty and you're fine. Did you not get some kind of trophy from PUBG tournament? Oh, true. I was supposed to get... What was I supposed to get? Some medal? Some gold medal? Oh yeah, I never got that shit, actually. I never got that shit. You're right. But I don't... Like, those things are just minor stuff. Like, I don't care. Maybe I didn't reply to some email or something. I don't know. I don't want to point them out or something. I don't know if it was my fault or not. I have quite a bunch of unread ones. Happens. Cali High Life, thank you for 4 years, man. 4 more.